Welcome into a brand new edition of the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast. Stacey King alongside, but our guy Whispers still missing in action. He's getting 2 weeks down in Fort Myers. He was complaining he's not getting enough use out of it. I guess he's finally getting his money's worth there.
Listen, when you have property down there, you want to get down there more than once, in the 365 days, or it's wasted property, and you're not renting it out, so you got to get some use out of it. I've asked to use it, he wouldn't let me use it. Yeah. I want to go down there and use it. On some days we get the weekends off, like we had 3-4 days off. I asked him, could I go down there and use it? He said, was I going to cut the grass and trim the hedges? And I said, absolutely not. What kind of man do you think? I'm not the gardener. I'm just coming there to chill and get some sun, man. Get out of this cold weather in Chicago.
Well, Rich was telling me, his coworker, that they've got association rules. He can't rent it out, so he can't try to make some of that money back.
Then why in the hell would you have bought it? You can't. You got cheated when you can only go down there 4 times a year. Right, and you can't rent it out.
Yeah.
Oh, hell to the no, man! I'd be going to get my money back, man, because that's the only reason why you would do it. It's like, because you're not going to be able to spend that much time down there.
No chance.
So while you're not using it, especially during the winter months when you're here in Chicago and you can't go down, you might as well rent it because that's where the snowbirds are. That's where all the money's being made.
Charge top dollar in the winter time.
Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm looking down there for some property. Trust me, that's the first question on my ass. Can I Airbnb this? And if they say nope, I'm out. Peace. Hey, I'll go somewhere else then, because I am not a no. Because you imagine how much money he's losing?
Oh my gosh.
He could have paid off. He could have paid it off by now.
So Whispers is supposed to be back next week.
Damn, Whispers!
I'll tell you what, we got a special treat for our audience right now. Stacey's former teammate with the first three-peat champion Chicago Bulls, Craig Hodges, the former three-point contest champion, is kind enough to join us from California. And before we talk basketball, Craig, we want to ask you about the situation. You're in Woodland Hills, and you said you're pretty close to those horrible, devastating wildfires.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I went to school at Long Beach State, and so it's certain times of year when it's the humidity gets very low, and with all the the timber and trees and all of that, it's a lot of energy and basically fuel for a fire like that. But the way they've been skipping all around has been crazy. For anybody both who has traveled here and who lives here understands that this is a different time and this is a different wildfire all over.
Yeah, it's I've got a lot of friends in California, and they've had to evacuate, and they're worried about their property, but it's about their safety right now. So but it's something that they have to live with, because it does get dry down there, and San Diego normally is the area that it normally hits, but it's bad now. I mean, I saw a video today.
From this end, just sending up prayers for all the families who have been affected, and everyone that, who understands the impact of losing a home and what it can mean to you and your loved ones. So, we just, it's all about coming together like we normally would as a people and keep it simple.
Yeah, it's bad, man. I'm again, prayers out to everybody who's affected. It's tough.
Craig, let's talk a little basketball now. Obviously, I'm sure you saw from afar the celebration of Derrick Rose, the Chicago guy who came back and is going to have his number 1 hanging in the rafters. That must have brought back some good memories of you from your days with the Bulls.
Oh, man, and when I look at someone like Derrick and what he's accomplished, and, the love that he had for the game, and think about, I look at the 2 banners you have behind you, 91 and 92, and how important that impact was for young players like a Derrick Rose, who saw the work that we put in. And so, it's one of those things that I look at it as a blanket. There's a quilt that's part of the Chicago Bulls family, and to be a part of that, and then to see one of the young brothers that, watched us play, and then he could go on and carry it to a level where he basically he put the city of Chicago on his back for years and was able to maintain it with a level of comfort. Basically being born and raised in Chicago, it was great for him to be able to have that type of impact on the city, and as well as the city have that type of impact on him to reach the level of greatness that he has.
Yeah, it's it was a remarkable ceremony. It was I was here his first year, and it was like Haley's Comet. He came in, and after our championship years, you didn't know if you'd ever see that again. I know you probably won't see what we did in that 6 years and 8 championships, and had MJ not retired and went to play baseball, that might have been 8 in a row.
Right.
But to see this kid come in and as a guard, I mean, you know,
Right.
the things he was able to do, the explosive ability, you know, just was just crazy, you know, and being so
Mhm.
small and being humble. I think that's the big thing for me. Was he's probably one of the nicest superstars that you'll ever meet. You know, doesn't
Exactly.
pound his chest, doesn't, you know, he's not demonstrative, but he plays with a
Right.
passion and he's loyal
Mhm.
to his teammates.
No doubt. And even to the point where, even when him and Jimmy were going, and I'm watching it from afar and looking at the media of how it was a thing of trying to make it, whether it was Jimmy's team or Derrick's team, all that, us being former players realize the impact of how outward influences can sometimes come in and ruin something that can be a great combination. And for me, that was kind of sad how that happened. But for him to be able to do the things that he did, like you said, at his size, and be able to basically pull everyone around him. And that's one of the things I loved about him. He seemed to make players better who were around him. And being a point guard and having that type of magnitude, that type of impact on the game, knowing that you could go out and almost shoot every time, he was making sure that he got everyone who played around him to a higher level of play, not only by the way he played the game, but like you said, how humble he was to the fact of him being an MVP and him being a number one pick, but understanding that, hey, man, it's about winning and how can I do what I can to make guys around me better, but at the same time, bring the level of urgency to it because it was a sense of urgency for the city after what we were able to do in the teams going forward for the city to have a championship chance. And Derrick gave us that.
Hey Craig, Stacey always jokes that he was born too early with the NIL money. Now he'd be making hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, millions of dollars playing wherever he would in college.
Hey, Stacey, go back to Oklahoma, right?
Yes. I took a pay cut when I got to the league.
But what I was leading up to is with the 3-point revolution, think about what you would be making. They'd let you shoot 8 to 12 threes a game. You'd be making crazy bank right now.
That was one of the things Stacey and I were talking about earlier. We were talking about the young brother up in Minnesota, Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
And how he shot 16 one game or something. And
Sure.
I was like, Stacey, it probably would have took me about almost 2 weeks a game to get that many up because and one of the beautiful things about the cycles and the history of the game is you can see, having played, you can see the historical footprints of different parts of where the game was laid to play a certain kind of way. And the way that they're playing now is based on, what we did from 82 literally until 92. Everything now is based upon how we spaced the court and how 3-point shooters were able to space the court. But at that time, me and Stacey was talking about earlier, how one of the greatest um, definitions of how the game is played now. I heard from brother Kobe, and he was saying how the game is played accidentally now, and we play with intention, and that so much is screen and roll and dribble, 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 and just the ability, the raw ability to make the 4 basic fundamental passes are something that's lost in the game. So it's a big difference, but when I think about Isaiah Thomas compared to Ja Morant, who can dribble 400 times maybe in a game, and you think about the type of taps that Isaiah had, he could have done that, but it was a different thing. And I asked people, I said it would have been interesting to see how many of the guys who are launching 3-pointers, if they would have had a center like a Joe Barry Carroll or a James Edwards or a Bill Cartwright who was telling you, I'm grabbing all these rebounds and you going down there and shoot every time, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a game, that it's lost its beauty. It's lost the passing, the cutting, just the intricacies of the game that makes the game so fun to watch. And it's easy. I reckon it to a bad men's league on a Sunday afternoon at 4:30. Everybody wants to be Steph Curry. Everybody's coming down, jacking at half court. Everybody, and these guys, some of these guys are not shooters, and they're shooting the ball because they've been told to shoot.
One of the things I think, as former players, and me, I don't know about you, but I think about some of the battles that take away the team, some of the battles that we had in practice.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That was competitive because the level of skill and skill training was such that, people look at MJ when he'd go out and get 40, but we can talk about them days in practice where it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And it was a thing where it was a level of competition, but it was also a level of skill and skill development that happened not only when you got to the league was a whole different level of development from a player development level, but what you got in college, whether it was Isaiah being a young one coming out, Stacey, BJ, Scott Williams, when we look at that generational approach to the game, it's totally different now. That Stacey and I was talking about just the fundamental skills. When you sit and watch the game from afar, you can see just the level of pass, and just those fundamentals and footwork are somewhat of a lost skill because so much has gone the way of analytics.
Yeah, Stacey's got the big personality, a great sense of humor, but he had to come into a team that was already had the pecking order. You mentioned Bill Cartwright and MJ and John Paxson. What was Stacey like as a rookie? Him and BJ coming in.
The funny part, Stacey and all the young cats, I almost lump them together. Sometimes, where I'm getting in age now, it seems like they all came at the same time. Whether it was that whole crew, it was Stacey, BJ, Hobson, and Scott Williams. Those were my boys. You know what I'm saying? Those were the young brothers that I knew had enough talent to be long-term players in the league, and the realization of what's necessary. So a lot of times for me, in looking at the teams I had played for before, the most fun I had was when we were playing when them guys came in, because we were coming off of a very serious Doug Collins. You know what I'm saying? And no diss to Doug, coming into Phil Jackson and those guys being able to come in under a total different environment of pressure, where the pressure was demonstrably different from Doug. Doug was one that he wanted this to be done right away, and Phil gave the guys the realization that this is a process of winning, and having Tex come in and almost take it back to a classroom situation that everybody was on the same page. So when we look at a Last Dance and how much it was spotlighted on MJ, when we look at the reality of what the situation was, it wasn't, the only alpha dog was really Phil Jackson. We knew that when we went on the court, MJ was going to get us them buckets when we needed, but it was also Tex Winter being able to blow that smoke in MJ's ear and tell him, hey, you wouldn't do that if Dean Smith was here.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of the things I've always said when people say, who are the leaders, on that team, and everybody always gravitates to Michael, and it's always, they think it's always the player, but it's the coach that's the leader. Phil Jackson from the very start, first of all, he's 6'10". Okay, he's not a little coach. So that already demands the respect. Second, he played the game. He won a championship. That also demands respect. And his voice carries. Like he's very direct in when he talks to you. Listen, I banged head with Phil, but I respected Phil. And he respected me. But the one thing I can always say about Phil that I've seen other coaches not do and they get away from, we all have the same rules. Everybody has the same rules. If you're late, you get fined. If you don't go to an appearance, you get fined. It didn't matter if you were Michael. It didn't matter if you're the 12th guy. Everybody had the same rules. The thing I liked about Phil was that he could delegate things to the other coaches. He didn't have to do everything himself. So if he got on me, then it would be Tex come over and say, it's going to be okay. You just need to do this, do this. And he wasn't afraid to delegate those things, those other responsibilities, Jim Clemens, Johnny Bach, and then the players picked up on it. The more that we were around each other, we policed each other. You remember how we policed each other. It was like we just look at each other. We knew we were professionals.
That's it. And that's the beauty. And I'm getting chills as you was, speaking of the coaching staff. I tell people later for the players, Phil had the best coaching staffs in the history of the game.
Yeah.
When you talk about the names that you named, Tex Winter, Johnny Bach, Jim Clemens, later for how many years Phil had in the league, just those three have had over 100 years of NBA experience, man.
Wow.
How could any player come back and say anything when a coach would say, yo, you doing this or you doing that, or we need you to do this or that. They're telling you from experience. And as a player, you took that, and Johnny Barker, Lord rest his soul, and Tex, the spirit and energy that they gave us in knowing we're competing against ourselves. Nobody is going to beat us outside of this locker room. So the only way we lose is if we beat ourselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, early in the triangle stuff, Stacey will tell you, we would lose games early in triangle that we probably could have won just because MJ would balk against the system and not want to give it to Bill. And this is no disrespect to anybody on our squad. We would not have won a championship without Bill Cartwright.
Yep, I second that.
And we called him the teacher because he controlled the environment of the paint. And that was taught to Stacey. That was taught to Will Purdue. That was taught, Scott Williams. Anybody who had to go in there and substitute Bill, he made sure that he mentored you in a way that you was ready to do what you needed to do. And if he saw something go wrong in what you were doing, he would pull you aside in that timeout and give you an earful and then send you back out on the court. And you would have a different perspective when you went back out there.
And people forget how good you were as a three-point shooter, what you added to those squads. You won three-point shooting contests during All-Star Weekend. I think you made 19 in a row at one point in one of those contests. Craig, you were an amazing shooter, and when you look back on those days, you almost look wistfully like, boy, I wish the three-point shot would have been a bigger part of the NBA back then.
And for me, it's one of those things that I don't, we look at it and once again, we're blessed to play in cycles. And I feel like Stacey and I were blessed to play in the golden era of the game. And I wouldn't change that for anything. The money is great and all of that. The accolades is cool, but to be able to say, when I look at those two banners behind you, I would challenge any team before and after that to beat us, and I understand the greatness of a Bill Russell. I understand the greatness of a LeBron James, a Steph Curry, but Stacey spoke of earlier when we were speaking, the mental aspect of what we brought as a unit was so strong that MJ didn't have to get 30 for us to win. That just happened. It could, to me, when I look at a Scottie Pippen, we understood that. We understood the days when Scottie would come to practice and say, I want to guard MJ, and it would be only 15 minutes of practice, So me shooting the basketball during that era, it was perfect for triangle because Tex and I both understood, coming from Long Beach, how much we utilize spacing and ball movement and player movement and how much it will result in MJ using 30 less percent in isolation basketball and how that would mean that Scotty's get touches, Stacey gets touches as a young guy to be able to improve so that the next season he's ready to be right there with Horace Grant. So it was one of those things where we understood how to play the game. And if it necessitated that we needed three, and I was sitting on the bench, the majority of the people, not only on our bench, but in the stadium knew that 90% of the time it was going to be good. Not because I could shoot so well, but because we had a system that we knew would give me an opportunity to shoot a wide open three. So 90% of the shots I shot with the Bulls from 3-point line were wide open jumpers.
The crazy thing about this, we talked about this and like BJ, all of us talk about this, is that he was such a great shooter. And when he left here, one of the things that we felt like, he can get on anywhere because he's a great shooter. And for whatever reason, whatever political reasons, whatever blackball, whatever you want to call it, his career was cut short. He probably had about 5 good years where he could actually still be playing and playing at a high level. And it was so sad to see because, Craig Hodges, people don't know behind the scenes what kind of person that he is and the causes that he's fighting for. You look at Colin Kaepernick and what Kaepernick did. Hodges was fighting for community. He was trying to bring attention to what's going on in the inner city, with the youth in the inner city of Chicago and all over the country, and education, and trying to help that aspect. And it scared a lot of people, I believe. And I believe that's one of the reasons, because he's outspoken. I believe that's one of the reasons. Talk a little bit about that, Craig.
For me, it's one of those. I've been blessed, man, to get a chance to meet basically all of my heroes growing up. I had a chance to meet Muhammad Ali, but he wasn't the Muhammad that I knew earlier. I had a chance to meet and be on the staff with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, play against Dr. J. And then on the other side of it, had a chance to sit and have lunch with Nelson Mandela when he came to Chicago, Jesse Jackson, those guys who were heroes of mine growing up in a household where my mom was the secretary for the civil rights movement. So for me, it was always a thing that you write letter to the people who have an impact on your life. So when we had a chance to win and go to the White House, I felt the night before we went, actually, in fact, we won in June. And Stacey will tell you, the night after that night in the hotel, I had my dashiki because I thought we were going to the White House right after that. And I had worn dashikis and African garments throughout the playoffs because I felt like it was an ancestral journey for me personally that, I'm getting a chance to do something in my life that people sacrifice their lives for me to be able to play a game and feed my family. So when we won a championship and I was able to be blessed to go to the White House with my teammates and present President Bush a letter in the most respectful manner. And see, one of the things that I want people to understand about the difference between Colin Kaepernick and myself, it was explained to me by Dr. John Carlos from the 1968 Olympics. Probably one of my foremost heroes. Had a chance to sit down and talk to him about it. And what he said was in 1968, when they went to the Olympics, they knew that what they were asking for and what they were seeking, they would probably never see, but they knew that they would plant seeds. So when he saw me at the White House, he felt like that was one of the seeds they had planted. And I was, carrying the baton a little bit further. And for me to get a chance to talk to him and him explain to me that in 1968, with the human rights Olympic program that they had, it was part of a collective movement. You had the 1968, you had the civil rights movement at its height in America. So the Olympics were caught up and swept up into a movement. In 1991, there was no movement going on in America. Whereas when we're talking about civil rights and social activism, so basically it was a desert at that time. Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, who I tell people all the time, what happened to me was one thing, but what happened to him at his point in his career, to me, he was at a point where he could have set records going forward in the scoring that he was doing. So neither one of us, in respectfully disagreeing what we saw as something that we could affect from the platforms that we had, we spoke about those things. Now, when we move forward with Colin Kaepernick, he was caught up into the movement with Black Lives Matter and Me Too. So the cause was already one of those that he didn't really need. And don't let us not forget about social media. The platform of social media gives you an instantaneous support base. And Colin had that, as well as his union. And that's one of the things when I look at what happened to me, and not happened to me, but what went on during that period of time, having won 2 championships and 3 3-point titles. I'm 32 years of age. And like Stacey said, I played Summer League in Chicago probably 4 years after that and averaged almost 30 points a game against guys who were playing in the league. So I could still play. It wasn't a matter of me playing, but it was a matter of me being able to talk to young guys and say, hey, what can we do as a group of people to help the next generation? Not only, and if people had a chance to read the letter that I wrote to the president, it wasn't just about Black people, man. I started off with thanking him for giving me a chance to come to the White House and ask him on behalf of poor people and those who are disenfranchised. So this isn't just about Craig and being a militant or anything like that. And I wasn't raised like that. And Stacey would tell you that, for me, being a great teammate was, what can I do for my brother that's sitting in the locker next to me? And that I know mine gonna come back if I do it that way. And I'm gonna do as much as I can by example of saying that, hey man, I'm gonna go out here and dive on the floor as a vet, then I'm expecting you to do the same thing, Rook.
Yep.
You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? And that's how we carried us as a team was that. And when Detroit was kicking our behinds, the biggest thing that we had to do was lock down on the fact that we had better talent, we had better system, but our mental focus was so weak that we were weak-minded
Yep.
to the fact that when they would punch us, we would cave in, and as opposed to coming together as a collective and saying, hey, that's part of the game. Let's get up and go to the line, knock these free throws down, and let's steal the ball again and get back at it.
Well, for people who are watching the show either on YouTube or on the Chicago Sports Network, they can see you're still in great shape. And Stacey shared with us a video that you had on Instagram. You're in your 60s now, and you can still shoot it lights out. You're knocking down those jumpers, those 3-point shots.
Yeah, it was
Do you
big
take a lot
fun,
of pride in that, still being able to knock down those shots at your age?
You know, the cool thing is, and once again, blessings on blessings from the creator to you know, I still think of myself as a student athlete, you know, and I try to research as much as I can still, and my knees aren't as, you know, flexible as they were, but I still do my stretching as much as I can. And I'm in the gym with a lot of young players, working on getting them to the next level. I have a young brother that I've trained since he was 9 years old. He's a sophomore at Fresno State. I have a young sister that's at Penn State, you know, Grace Hall. So it's been some players from the Chicago, both of those players are from the Chicagoland area. In fact, David Douglas Jr. led the state of Illinois in scoring 2 years ago at Yorkville Christian Academy, and Grace was one of the top players from Homewood Flossmoor. So, you know, it's a blessing to be able to, you know, and one of the things I love doing is like this evening, I have a training at 6 o'clock out here with my son and probably at like 4 or 5 high school players, is put them through the shooting clinic for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then at the end of it, say, okay, the first one is 25, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and be able to and drop the last one from half court for them just to let them know that, you know, we still have a radar that works.
That's right.
I tell you what, Hodge, I was watching that, and he was going up against Lethal Shooter, who has a reputation of being a great, great shooter. You know, Craig had
Yes.
coached him back in the day. And
Yes.
That's how Craig knew him. And so Craig's shooting with this guy, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Lethal Shooter is nice. And then I see Craig. I didn't even know Craig was on there. And I say he popped on there, and then all of a sudden he's just following, pop, 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 pop. And I was like, oh my God. Like he's shooting basket for basket at every single spot.
Yeah,
and then the rebounder, he didn't even have to move because the ball would just come to the net, and it was such a great shot. All you had to do is catch it and shoot it. The ball wasn't bouncing all over the place.
Right.
And I tell you, most of the shots didn't even hit the rim.
Yes. And that's, you know, and that's the beauty of, you know, once again, the blessing of working. And I think one of the things that I always harp with these younger players is that don't get caught up into the trappings of the sport. And the trappings of the sport changes from generation to generation. Right now, the biggest drawback for these young folks is the telephone. You know what I'm saying? That cell phone, you know how many followers you have. It ain't about how many followers you have. How many reps are you putting up? How many opportunities are you getting to get better at what you want to do and take. And that I feel so blessed to have been born in the generation that I was born in, where I had a chance to play in summer leagues with people like Sonny Parker, Mickey Johnson, you know, Ricky Green, and guys who were in the league already, and they're telling us the things that we needed to do as younger players, where that's not happening anymore. All of these guys now have their own personal trainers. Everybody is so specific in trying to be a basketball player as opposed to how do I become a world-class athlete and a basketball player. That I think the training regimen that we had as players, when I went up to Milwaukee to watch the Antetokounmpo brothers, and I coached Thanasis when he was in New York with the G League and with the D League at that time. And I was like, man, how do guys get better without no practice? These guys aren't practicing. We had to, and that's the wild part to me that confounds me is how can you get better? Likewise, how can you have a bench get any better if you're not scrimmaging to say, okay, it was times, Stacey will tell you, it was times when our second unit would have our first unit gassed because we were able to come at them y'all might have MJ, but we're gonna double and do whatever we need to. But on the other end, we got Stacey who's outrunning Bill. You know what I'm saying? So we had things that
when he
we
wasn't
could
grabbing me.
Oh man, not only grabbing you, beating you down.
Beat me up. Exactly.
You know, and that was the funny part. And I tell people about Bill Cartwright. I was like, you know, Bill, I would run through the paint and Bill would look around. What are you doing down here? Get your little ass out town. And I'm out here, bro. And he kept the paint righteous for us. And I remember when David, the Admiral, and I think that might have been when we gave Bill his name, Teacher, was when David Robinson came into the league, and the Admiral decided to take a charge on Bill Cartwright. And he was out for about 4 or 5 games. And we was like, yeah, you'll learn from that one. And he became the teacher after that.
One of the things we talk about too is like, you know, when you compare the eras, and you know, you really can't, but it's not, our eras are not too far apart. Right. So it's not like you're talking 40 years, 50 years.
Right.
One of the things that I see with this area is that they have all the training, they have all the shot doctors, all these different people to enhance them. Okay. But it's like they break down so easy. I mean, guys are, you know, only playing 50, 60 games. We took pride in trying to play all 82. You know, it was a pride thing. Like we were determined not to miss games. I mean, I remember Paxson and Cartwright getting knee surgeries and then coming back, you know, getting knee scopes and coming back in 2 or 3 days and playing in games. And so when younger players are seeing this, you know, you see Michael Jordan getting beat up every night, 48 minutes, Scotty getting beat up every night, 48 minutes. They come to practice the next day. How can a young guy like myself or BJ or Scott Williams or Will even think about missing a practice?
That's it. And, you know, one of the things, like we said, handing the baton off to the next segment of players, you know, one of the things when I came into the league and I was a rookie under Bill Walton, Lord rest his soul. Bill would just mess with you to mess with you. You know what I'm saying? So the hazing effect of veterans to rookies was a total different package. So when you came into the league, Stacey, you was catching the tail end of that respect of younger player to veteran player, where now the money is such that these young brothers are making so much money, they only respect how much money they're getting and how many followers and how many other stuff they're getting. And no diss, it's the generation that you're under is what you get. So it's wild for me to watch when we talk about load management. Man, load management. When I was in Milwaukee, I'll never forget, Sidney Moncrief, I hurt my finger and I was out 5 games. And he was like, man, I'm sorry for you. I feel sorry for you, brother, but that's more minutes and more shots. And that was a certain way that we understood that this thing is only so many minutes and I want to play as many as I can, because during that period of time, we were playing to get paid to a certain degree. And within that, you got paid when you won. So if we played well enough to make it far into the championship or win a championship, the bread was going to be better. Where now the bread, like you say, you're getting paid in college. So now when you come to the league, it's a certain grandiose idea that you have that shit. I just left college making $2 million off NIL. I know I got to come to the league making 14, 15 million, and I'm going to be a superstar. So if you have a team full of superstar mentalities, everybody is putting the ball on the floor and shooting threes. I'm like, I get how great and all this thing about this generation was this generation, and how our generation is better than you guys. I just say I would love to see Bill Cartwright versus Joel Embiid. Just to see where, and even to the point where you think about when they talk about, well, who did Wilt Chamberlain play against? I would have loved to see Wilt play against Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid stopping at the 3-point line and Wilt having to just run to half court basically. Now I get to run down here and punish you on the block. It's a whole different level of play. And that's the part that I tell people, is that just the physicality of the inside play compared to today, I would challenge a lot of teams just on Bill Cartwright, Stacey, Scott Williams, Will, Cliff Levingston, Horace. And we ain't even got to talk about guard play after that. They're going to handle the business.
Yeah.
We could almost go inside the entire game and be good.
Well, the game has changed so much, but Craig Hodges remains one of the greatest three-point shooters in NBA history. Hodge, thank you so much for catching up with us on the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast. Stay safe out in the Los Angeles area. Our prayers go out your way, and we hope to see you back at the United Center for a game real soon.
No doubt.
Let me know when you come through, boy. I got you.
Oh, no doubt. Appreciate you and love y'all, man.
Love you too, boy. Peace out.
Craig Hodges, our guest on the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast.
One of the greatest shooters of all time, doesn't get the respect that he deserves.
There's no question about
Man,
that.
he can shoot that thing.
Watching him in those three-point shooting contests, he was just killing guys.
Oh, him and Larry Bird were the two best in that contest.
Yeah.
You know, Larry Bird was an excellent three-point shooter, but Hodge was there too.
One other thing.
He's back. He didn't leave.
We got an encore from Hodge.
I ain't going no. I just wanted to hear that. But you know the cool part about it too is that at that time they put a player at each end of the court, and we competed not only within the competition, but we competed. Everybody wanted to see. Like one of my memories was me getting to shoot against MJ, and I'm like, "Why you want to come and shoot in my contest?"
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a little humble there.
when you know you're gonna get flamed up, you're gonna get flamed up.
Right. You know what's up, Stacey.
Oh, you ain't got to tell me.
Thanks, Hodge.
I snuck back in. I was like, I got some more to say. Way to go, Hodge. That's my boy.
Hey, we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we'll talk about the current Bulls and more on Gimme the Hot Sauce.
Oh, man.
Had a great time talking with Craig Hodges. We almost forgot to tell you about one of our great sponsors, our buddy Jeff Vukovich. When it comes to being treated like royalty, reach out to Jeff. He'll take care of all your insurance needs, auto, home, and business. You can reach him at jeffvuk.com. That's Jeff VUK.com. The phone number on your screen, 847-825-4783. We're going to give Stacey a day off. He's been traveling all around the country. He's been dealing with some stuff at home. He's just been worn to a frazzle. We're just going to tell you that Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide is on your side. I couldn't like Mark. I had to, Mark.
Stacey rallied.
Got it out. I rallied at the last second. I've been making my little homemade hydrogen water.
There you go. Yeah, I like it.
It gave me some energy, baby.
Yeah, that thing beeps when you open it.
I know.
That's new technology,
it's
right
new
there.
technology. It makes hydrogen water. It's supposed to be good for gut health and give you some energy. It's like it's pretty. You read up on it. It's pretty impressive.
I smell a new sponsor.
Oh yeah, baby!
Hydrogen water.
Hydrogen.
So Stacey's just back. We're recording on Thursday afternoon. He's just back from Indianapolis. Bulls have been playing really well, winning 4 out of 5, and that one kind of went the other way. You could see right from the beginning, kind of a low energy game.
Yeah, that one was one you just put the file in the cabinet and saying, "Don't open ever again."
Right.
You know, it was
you
brutal.
Nothing from that. Yeah.
The first 5 minutes, I thought Indiana kind of caught them off guard with the energy. Anytime the Bulls had a pick and roll situation, whether it was Kobe, whether it was Zach, they played it totally different. They jumped out and tried to get the ball out of the guard's hands, and the Bulls really didn't have a counter for that. It took them about 8 minutes to realize what was going on, and before they knew it, they were down 15, 16 points.
Before that, though, the games, the comeback against the Knicks, Kobe White going off, and then San Antonio, they're down, 19 points. They come back to win that game. Those are really entertaining games at the United Center.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, we talk about this all the time, is that they can beat anybody if they make shots and they play defense. It's a simple formula. Like I always say, it's a simple game. It is a simple game. If you make shots and you play defense, you're going to win. You're going to win a majority more than you're going to lose. And they did. And that's what makes, the Indiana game so, makes it a sour taste in your mouth because, you can beat all these good teams and then you struggle against teams that are 500 or maybe one game. They were one game over 500, Indiana was, but they won 10 out of 14. So they've been on a little win tear there. But that's what made it a little disappointing. But Zach's been playing at a high level, all-star caliber. 4 straight 30-point games. Vooch is playing at a high level. Kobe is starting to get his rhythm now. He's been, Kobe's still going to be inconsistent. There's going to be, he can have a 30-point game, and next thing you know, he can have a 12-point game. He's got to find ways to be consistent. If he can be consistent, that's a second or third score the Bulls can count on every single night. When you had DeMar, you knew what you're going to get. You got Zach, you know what you're going to get. Kobe has to be that guy. You know, double-double with Vooch is like death and taxes. He's going to get that double-double. Kobe has to give you consistent play from the point guard position. He just has to. You can't have 30 points one game and then turn around and go 1 for 10 in the next game. So you got to find some consistency.
He said something to reporters after a recent game that it was a big adjustment for him with Josh Giddey coming in and being the primary ball handler. You know, it's funny, we're talking to Hodge. The game has changed so much. That shouldn't impact you that much.
Let me tell you something. I got paid. I get paid on the 1st and 15th.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not worrying about that. I'm going to play my game. I'm going to do what I do. I'm not going to adjust my game for another point guard coming in. He's going to have to adjust to me because this is my team. I've been on this team longer than him. So that, Josh has to adjust to what I'm doing and try to fit in. So I'm going to do what I did last year when I was almost the most improved player. I'm not going to change the way I play, to cater to someone else. You got to learn how to fit in, and anybody going to a different team is going to have that, unless you're LeBron, you're that kind of superstar player, Kevin Durant. Those guys don't have to worry about that because it's their team when they come in. But if you're not that that kind of a player or caliber player, you've got to find ways to fit your game into what the team is trying to do. I think Josh has done that. I don't know why it would be an issue with Kobe because, I'm here. I've been here. I'm going to do what I do.
The other issue for the Bulls right now, Patrick Williams continues to be inconsistent, struggled in the last couple of games. They gave him that nice contract, 5 years, $90 million. Everyone expected that jump. Hasn't happened. I mean, this is year 5. What can they do to get more production out of Patrick Williams?
It falls on Patrick Williams. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing that the coaching staff can do. He works hard in practice. He works hard with the developmental coaches. He has the talent to be very good. It all falls on Patrick. Do you want to be a role player? Or do you want to be a star? If I'm Billy Donovan, that's what I'm asking him. I'm sitting him down in the room and I'm saying, look, I know what you can be. I know what the potential you have that you can be a star. Do you want to be a star or do you want to be – the water's done. Sorry about that, America. The water's done. Do you want to be a star or do you want to be a role player?
Yeah.
And if you want to be a star, then you need to start carrying yourself like a star. You got to start playing every single night. We got to know every single night that you're going to be one of the best defensive players on the floor. I got to know every single night you're going to rebound the basketball, and I got to know every single night you're going to play at a high level offensively. You can't come and play one game and then disappear for 5. Not in year 5. I only wish I was – I'm serious. We joke. I wish I was in this era because we had to earn minutes. Yeah. We had to fight for minutes. These guys are gifted minutes, off of potential. They never had to work. They never have to, claw and scratch and fight, if I'm a coach in the NBA and I have a bunch of young players, you guys are going to be pit bulls. You guys are going to fight for playing time. You got to earn the right to be out there. And I know for a fact because I've been on championship teams and I've been on championship caliber college teams. When you foster an environment where it's dog eat dog world and people have to earn what they eat, it's a different team. It hits differently. Those teams are going to be hardened. Those teams are going to be mentally tough and physically tough. When you foster a team, like remember that coach said, I don't need cats, I need dogs.
Right,
remember that?
Right,
and everybody laughed at him.
Yeah.
But there's truth to that. You want guys who are dogs. You want guys who want to come out there and fight and bang and do whatever it takes to win. You would push your mother down. If you were running a 100-yard sprint, you would push your mother out the way to win. It sounds harsh but that's what it takes. You got to do whatever it takes to win. And Patrick's got to get that dog in him. He's got to get that dog in him. Stop worrying about, missing shots. Stop worrying about, coming out the game. Play your game. Go get offense. They don't want to run plays for you, Mark. Go get offense rebound. They don't want to give you run a special play for you. Then you know what? Dive to the basket, cut to the heart to the basket, and dunk the ball. There's ways you can get your offense going. You don't have to have a play call for you.
Last thing before we take a break, the Derrick Rose ceremony. I know that you were asked to speak along with Joe Keem and Neil Funk. Your comments are great. Really, really sensational what you had to say about Eric. I know you got a little bit choked up kind of a little bit in the middle there because you've been close with this kid and seen the ups and downs that he's been through. But it was such a great night, and it was so wonderful to see Derrick finally accepting the accolades because he always kind of pushed him off. You know, like, hey, I'm just one of the guys. But I think he he really appreciates now the heartfelt feelings of Chicago, that they really appreciate what he's been through and what he's given to the city.
Well, it comes with age. You know, when you're 18, 19 years old, 1 year of college, you know, you haven't been exposed and you haven't grown up. You know, you grow up in college. By the time you come in as a freshman, as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, if you stay 3 to 4 years, you're a young man when you leave there.
Yeah.
Okay. And depending who your coach was, you've developed skills. You know, you develop life skills. When you come out as 18 years old, 1 year in college, you don't have life skills yet. You didn't learn how to be, you know, how to do certain things. Now you come to a team where you're supposed to be a savior. You're supposed to be the guy that resurrects this team. And he did that. He did everything that was expected out of him being a number one pick. And had he not got hurt, and we always say what ifs, you know, had he not got hurt and they would have made a couple of more moves to get players in here, that was a championship caliber team. You look at the team, you look at Joakim Noah, you know, first team All-NBA. Lou Aldang was on the second or third team All-NBA. Boozer, you know, you had some really good talent. Kyle Korver, Taj Gibson. You had some really good players here, and they all bought into the system. They all bought into Thibodeau's system, that hard, grind it, don't take shortcuts. And they all enjoyed playing with one another. And the thing I liked about Derrick, you'll never hear, Mark, anybody who's ever played with Derrick, you'll never hear anybody say a bad word about that kid, not from any team he's ever played on. And a mark of showing you how much love you have from your teammates is when you saw how many of his ex-teammates flew from all over the place impressive. To see this. I mean, I'm talking maybe 50, 60 of like players that he played with flew in for this ceremony. That tells you how much love he has for his teammates.
And we had Neil Funk on the show last week before the ceremony, and it was great hearing you guys together again. You guys had a great time.
It's like riding a bike. Yeah. Like you just don't forget. I mean, we spent, we spent 13 years together on the mic, and another 6 or 7 as players. So me and Neil had a relationship before we actually did TV together. And Neil's always been one of my favorites. He's everybody thinks that he's the straight guy. And I'm the comedy guy. Neil's funny as hell.
Oh, he
okay.
is.
And Neil and I as much as I say Derrick helped my career, Neil Funk helped my career just as much, because Neil allowed me to be me. He allowed me to, because most of the time the play-by-play guy gets all the exciting calls.
Yeah,
he gets, and the analyst just sits back and then chimes in. Neil recognized with me that I had a gift to do that.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, Stacey, go, sure show. You do it." And he just backed off and allowed me to do it. There was no attitude. There was no, "Hey kid, you need to be quiet." Like some guys do that.
Oh yeah.
So I've heard from other people in my role that I've heard that some of the older guys, like when Neil tells them, "Hey, you be quiet, shut up. This is when I talk." Neil's never done that to me. Neil has never big time me. Neil has always encouraged me to be who I am. And I'm being honest. I would not be who I am if it wasn't for those two guys.
And Neil seemed to really enjoy it too, which was great. Getting a chance to get his flowers to see so many of his old friends back at the United States.
You know what, Mark? He didn't get the proper send off because it was COVID during that time when he retired. And Neil stepped away because his wife was sick and she had vertigo, and so he had to make a family decision. He probably, if his wife doesn't get sick, Neil's probably still doing his job, and so he had to step away from the game to deal with family. And then his wife ended up passing away just recently, and so he's been just in Florida, and I talk to him. I talk to him on a regular basis, and Bill Whittington talks to him because we're all close. And I just felt like, what? Let's get Neil here, man.
Yeah,
let's get Neil here, because he was here during the Derrick Rose start. So what better way to bring him back? Let the fans see him. He got to do the MC, which that's his role anyway, and so he did a great job MCing, and then coming back and getting behind the mic. We had him when we had the Bull celebration, but he was there just for halftime, and he was just talking. He didn't really get to do the play-by-play. But he's got a distinctive voice. He's got one of those old school voices, man, that you just don't see anymore. You don't hear anymore. A lot of those guys, Johnny Most and Chick Hearn, all those guys had unique voices.
That's right. Very distinctive.
And Kurt Gowdy. You go on down and look at all the other sports guys. Keith Jackson in college football. Whoa, Nelly. These guys had iconic voices, and they're not here anymore. Those guys, most of those guys have passed away. And so you got to cherish guys like Neil who are still here. You got to give them their flowers, while they're still here. And that's what, having the Bulls bring him back, they did that. And it was just so much fun seeing him and the smile on his face. But he couldn't wait to get out of here because it was too cold. He said he had thin blood and he shouldn't be here right now during this time, but he only came for me. So I was glad to see that.
Well, it was a very special night at the United Center, hearing Stacey and Neil back together again, and Derrick Rose. Just a wonderful ceremony. Kudos to the Bulls for putting on a great show. And we got another one next year when that number 1 goes up to the rafters. The Bears, again, are searching for a new head coach. That topic and more next on Give Me the Hot Sauce. Well, it seems to be a rite of winter in the Chicago area. The Chicago Bears trying to find either a new coach, a new general manager, or both. Ryan Poles is being kept on as general manager, and he's in charge of the search that right now supposedly could be as many as 15 people. As we tape today, they're talking to Pete Carroll, who's in his 70s. You think Pete Carroll still has it in him to take another team and try to lead them forward? I think he's a viable candidate, I guess.
I think he's a viable candidate because, Pete at 70s, he's really like a 40-year-old.
Yeah,
he's in great shape. Yeah. He's in great shape. He has a lot of energy. Like, that's one of the few 70-year-olds, I mean, you look at Arians and all those guys, they were able to do it. So, yeah, he could definitely do it. I just think that, come on now, the obvious choice is offensive coordinator for Detroit. Ben Johnson. That's the obvious choice. You're going to have to throw some money at him, because here's the deal with him. He can be a head coach anywhere, okay? There's going to be some openings everywhere, okay? You have to entice him to come to Chicago, and he's going to want control. He's going to want a stable front office. He doesn't want to have to be looking over his shoulder, having to answer questions because he saw how the coaches have been here treated before. And so his agent definitely is going to be, asking all these questions. Yeah. Who's going to be the general manager? Is this guy here for the next 5 years? Or are you guys going to, let him go, and then there's going to be a new general manager who may not like Ben Johnson coming in? So if you're gonna move off of polls, then you need to do it now while you're recruiting my guy, because that's what I would be saying if I was his agent, because I don't want him to come in and then polls is a lame duck, and then you get a general manager who wants his guy in a couple of years. And so now you create the same storm that you've created with all these other coaches.
I know Bears fans are all excited about Ben Johnson because they see what's been done in Detroit. Now, obviously, Dan Campbell's the guy that created the culture there. Ben Johnson's a very good play caller, very innovative mind.
Aaron Glenn is a great defensive coordinator.
But remember when the Bears brought in Matt Nagy? He was the hot name. He was the guy that learned under Andy Reid. He's going to be fantastic calling plays. That didn't work out. Going back 30, 40 years.
Mark,
Dave Wannstedt was coming off a Super Bowl with the Cowboys. He came in here. It didn't work.
But you go back to Nagy, right? You knew about Patrick Mahomes. Like, that guy was there during the scouting of Patrick Mahomes. You knew about that. And then you come here and you don't get him. And it's like, okay, and then Kansas City got him. Were you a double agent? Did you help Andy Reid? Hey, you go ahead. We won't draft him. You go ahead and take him. See, the Bears are starting to become like a laughing stock outside of, Hallis Hall. No one's taking him serious. I've heard players talk about him badly. You got to change your image. You got to change the image and the culture of what you're doing there for people to come there. At the end of the day, money talks and BS walks. Guys going to come where the most money is. But a coach like Ben Johnson can stay another year in Detroit, because that team they got is sustainable to win. Win for the next 3 or 4 years. Okay, so you could ask to be the highest paid offensive corner. You can go back to Detroit and say, look, I'll stay another year or two. You make me the highest paid offensive coordinator, but you pay me head coach money. What a head coach makes, I'll stay here. 2 years, we'll keep building, win a Super Bowl, hopefully, and then in 2 years I'll go. But he's in control right now. He doesn't have to go anywhere. He ain't got to go nowhere. No. He's not desperate.
And the wild card in all this now is the Las Vegas Raiders fired their general manager and their coach, and Tom Brady is involved in ownership now. Tom Brady may be given a lot of decision-making power in terms of trying to build that organization up. I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Johnson winds up going to Las Vegas.
Well, I mean, Tom Brady has like 10%, I think, ownership in the program, and he's very influential. But at the same time, the owner, Mark Davis, is the guy at the end of the day that's made these bad decisions. You need to hire football people. Football people need to make football decisions. When the owner gets involved, like Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones has got his hands all in the
Now
Cowboys.
they got Mike McCarthy dangling.
Yeah.
You know, they
well,
won't
yeah.
even
He says he can go talk to whoever he wants to.
Yeah.
Then they deny him. Come on, man. Come on, man. Listen. Listen. Dak Prescott could be a great guy off the field. He's not a guy you're going to win a Super Bowl with. I'm sorry.
He's hurt all the time,
and he's hurt all the time. And then when the games get tough, his decision making is awful. He throws picks when you don't need to throw picks. So they need to make a decision because they paid him all this money to be a franchise quarterback. Okay. I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know that. He hadn't shown me that he's a franchise quarterback because he can't get him past, the first round. It's like, come on now. I'm paying you all this money. If Tom Brady can come to Tampa Bay and take Tampa Bay to a Super Bowl immediately, maybe we should go get him.
If it was up to you, if you were the GM of the Bears, who would you hire?
Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson. But I the way the dynamics are, is Warren calling the shots? Is Poles involved? I mean, what are we doing here?
And then you got 13 McCaskies.
You got the flying McCaskies. they're making the ultimate decisions.
Yeah.
And what we've heard about them, but the whole organization, they don't want controversy. They don't want any. They don't want to coach.
Yeah.
They don't want a coach that's going to. They're going to have to cater to.
Know your place.
Yeah, it's
don't
just you.
Swear,
you don't say anything.
Yeah.
You just do what you're told and coach football, but don't swear. Don't drink beer in public. Don't go to any bars in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? They want that kind of guy.
And don't ask for too much money.
Don't ask for too much money because you're not gonna get it. But I'm telling you, if you want Ben Johnson, but listen, they messed up when they had Harbaugh. That was all set up. That was a slam dunk. They set that up. But Harbaugh is a guy that will not relinquish control. He will not be pushed around. He will not be told what to do. He's a winner.
He will rock the boat.
He's won everywhere he's been. College, San Jose State, Stanford, San Francisco, Michigan. He's won everywhere he's been at.
And he's winning with the Chargers.
And he was he was a good quarterbacks coach when he first got into coaching. Come on now. Come on now. Y'all had a chance to get him, and you refuse to get him because he's too controversial, and you can't bully him and tell him what to do. You're not going to do Ben Johnson that way either, so you might as well just get over that.
It will be an interesting couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, before the Bears finally decide on a head coach. Before we get out of here, it's our regular feature. What are we watching? You got something for the folks?
Yes, it's a favorite. It's a favorite of mine. It's a children's book. It's The Lion King. Before The Lion King, it's Mufasa. Okay, Mufasa is it's all about him growing up, and he wasn't really the king. He wasn't really royalty. He's like a hood lion. He comes from the hood. He's a hood lion. Scar, his brother in The Lion King, they're not really brothers. Scar was the prince, and Scar wasn't even his real name. His real name is Taka. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So Scar is royalty. And Mufasa was a hood lion that just was like friends with Scar. And they were really good friends. And then Mufasa grew up, and Mufasa started doing all these saving people and just showing courage that Taka or Scar couldn't do. And they had to save the pride. Man, it's a great movie. You gotta go see it.
And Scar ultimately got his revenge though in the regular movie.
Long live the king. Brother!
So part of the deal here is we tell you what you should watch. Another part of the deal is we tell you what you should avoid. And it's the age-old lesson that star power does not necessarily equal a good film. I had the misfortune of spending a couple of hours watching a movie called Wolves on Apple Plus. You think it's George Clooney? It's Brad Pitt. It's got to be pretty good, right? Not so much.
Really?
They're rival fixers, and they're both called in to try to cover up what they thought was a murder that didn't turn out to be a murder. And they go through this convoluted thing to try to save this young kid who was involved in a drug thing gone bad. Not good.
Really?
Good. Yeah. So anyway, if you got Apple Plus and you're searching around thinking, what should I watch? Keep moving. Keep moving right on by.
Don't watch that one.
I don't think you enjoy that very much. All right, so Whispers is supposed to be back next week. He's scheduled to be back from Fort Myers, Florida in a couple of days. We will interrogate him. We'll collect all the fines that he's accumulated over the past couple of weeks. And
I'm over here hitting buttons right now.
Yeah, what do you got?
Just like whispers.
All right, Stace. Well, I know that you got a lot of home games coming up, so you can get off the road for a little bit. Which
Five.
is
I think we got 5 home games.
Yeah,
and they're all winnable games. They're all winnable games.
Yeah.
So this will be a good chance. Listen, I'm reserved to just say honestly, we're not going to get that pick.
Yeah,
we're not.
Yeah, it's going to be tough
because they're playing pretty good right now.
Unless they make a lot of moves at the deadline.
Well, unless they get rid of everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only way that's happening. But I just don't think that's going to happen because I think these guys every single night they come out and they're trying to win.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, like we've said before, players don't tank, coaches don't tank. It's got to be an organizational.
Unless you're just going to kidnap them.
That's
show up at the United Center and just start kidnapping guys, hold them for ransom.
Or put them all in a bad movie on Apple Plus.
Yes.
Hey, that's going to wrap it up here for another edition of Gimme the Hot Sauce. We'll be back with a brand new show next week. You want to tease next week's guest, or is that not confirmed yet?
Let's confirm, but I ain't saying nothing
because
every time I have a guest come on, something happens.
We got a big name guest, a
big name.
An A-lister coming up next week on Gimme the Hot Sauce. So until then,
drive home safely, Chicago. Beep beep.